Blah 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 blah. It's Steve Sauce 101, and there's not going to be a final draft of the Bad Batch. Some of us have to work in Biden's economy, so we can't spend all day on YouTube. I was proven right about that though. Anyway, let's jump right into it. Season 6, Part 2 of Star Wars The Clone Wars sucked, and the Siege of Mandalore was the worst arc in all of Clone Wars. A hot take, I know, but it surprised me at first how different I felt about it compared to everyone else. Get ready for a timely review of The Siege of Mandalore. The first episode opens up to some okay turn your brain off violence, where the clones give up the element of surprise to fly headfirst at the droids, even though the Clone Wars is capable of well thought out action. Oh well, it's not like this is the last arc or anything. I'm glad we got to hear about the Outer Rim sieges and not just see them. Just as I'm glad we got a full 5 seasons and 2 half seasons instead of the original planned 8. Thank you so much, Disney. Commander Cody and Admiral Yarlin are present for this arc, even though both are having a stronger presence in the incredibly Bad Batch arc, which would have made much more sense. Cody created the Bad Batch, and Yarlin were rivals with Admiral Trench. I suppose a hungry dog like myself can't be picky, though. We cut to Ahsoka, who's working with Bo-Katan, everyone's favorite terrorist. They want Obi-Wan to help invade Mandalore, a decision he can't possibly make without the Council or the Senate. Bo-Katan then tries to guilt-trip Obi-Wan by bringing up her sister's death. This is retarded for a few reasons. The aforementioned fact that Obi-Wan can't make this decision, the fact that she helped overthrow her sister, and because it makes it clear to Anakin Obi-Wan had feelings for Satine, and more on that later. Bo-Katan is a bitch. In the Clone Wars, she worked to violently overthrow her family because her boyfriend wanted to. Once she succeeded, thanks to Maul, she turned against him and the Death Watch. Some say because Maul is an outsider, and this is thinly veiled racism, and while I'm all for it, Maul had assimilated to Mandalorian culture. He not only was responsible for Death Watch's takeover, but he beat Pre Vizsla in a fair duel for power. He deliberately didn't use the Force to show that he understood and respected their ways, so much so that Pre Vizsla made it clear he accepted Maul as the new leader. After the Clone Wars, Bo-Katan would somehow lose power, violently regain it, lose it again, and violently regain it. In case it wasn't abundantly clear, the habitorial, backstabbing Bo-Katan shouldn't rule Mandalore. The show says the people don't want her to rule, and it also shows the fact she needs the Republic's help to overtake Mandalore. I haven't seen any fans question her character, and that's truly remarkable.
Maul's puppet, and we are coming for him.
Ah, Mistress Bo-Katan, the traitor. I should have known you were behind this incursion. Siding with the Republic will make you an enemy in the eyes of the people.
I'm fine with that.
From one bad bitch to another, let's talk about Ahsoka. She gets all this sort of respect from the clones. It's been a while since I rewatched the Clone Wars, but I don't remember her having that many interactions with the clones outside of 501st. Although I don't remember that well, a bit of my nitpicks, but I hate that her lightsaber were changed to blue. I'm pretty sure kyber crystals weren't interchangeable originally. I don't know, I'm not a nerd. And even if they were, it's a completely unnecessary change made just because Dave Filoni likes blue. I think it also visually hurts her design because now she looks too monocolored to me. Although I am colorblind, so don't know if that works or that's bother anything.
It was approved. No, it's Coruscant. Grievous has attacked the capital.
What about the Chancellor?
Shock T has been sent to protect him, but Master Windu has lost contact with her. Not to worry. Our fleet can be there within the hour.
So that's it? You're going to abandon Bo-Katan and her people?
Ahsoka, surely you understand. This is a pivotal moment in the Clone Wars. The heart of the Republic is under attack.
I understand that as usual you're playing politics. This is why the people have lost faith in the Jedi. I had too, until I was reminded of what the Order means to people who truly need us.
Right now, people on Coruscant need us.
When it's brought up Coruscant is being invaded, she mindlessly bitches at Obi-Wan. She accuses him and the Jedi of playing politics for wanting to defend the capital of the galaxy's home to billions of people, including her own dopey Marquise sisters. She focuses on the Chancellor when it was Anakin who brought him up, not Obi-Wan. He's more concerned about the war criminal and the second biggest Jedi killer, General Grievous. Ahsoka is more concerned about helping terrorists become a undemocratized despot. And sure, Maul might be there, but in terms of galactic peace, Grievous is the bigger threat. Obi-Wan decides to have Mandalore invaded without approval, telling Ahsoka, the ex-Jedi Padawan, to capture Maul, the guy who has killed multiple Jedi Masters. When Ahsoka invades Mandalore, she doesn't quickly kill all the Mandalorians. She prolongs their death by making them fall thousands of feet or gruesomely blowing them up. Closed casket funerals for sure. Somewhat related, I hate seeing people say the Clone Wars, as well as other shows, aren't kid shows because it has action in it. A show's maturity is determined by its themes, not its cartoon violence. Also, just because it's for kids doesn't mean adults can't enjoy it either. Too bad most of the fans of Star Wars are adult children anyway. On the only plus side, we do get introduced to Chad Saxon and his goth girlfriend. The action is mostly visually pleasing, though if you think about it, it sours. For example, the reason why Ahsoka and the company get ambushed isn't because Maul set up such a great trap, it's because they didn't sweep the sewers. A bit nitpicky, however, Clone Wars has some of the best actions in a kid's media, so I think it's fair criticism. Maul and Ahsoka's fight is worst example. They use motion capture for the first time, and while I completely respect trying new things, it doesn't look good. It hits an uncanny valley for me, both literally and because it's not as fast or as fun-paced as previous lightsaber fights in the Clone Wars. Nor is it as real and grounded as the movies. It's the worst of both worlds. Not only is it ugly, but Ahsoka and Maul have no connection. One of the criticisms about the prequels had that their fights carried no emotional weight, and they were just cool action scenes. Ignoring the fact that the prequels have perhaps the most emotional fights, it's a fair point. Ahsoka and Maul's fight has no emotional weight, unlike the biggest missed opportunity in all of Star Wars, Dooku versus Maul. A more humanized Dooku wanted to avenge his apprentice, and Maul wanted to reclaim his role as apprentice. Could you imagine? But fuck that. Filoni had to show off Sidious, whose greatest strength was being subtle and manipulative. Whatever. Anyway, the action could be worse, I suppose. We could be told instead of shown what really cool events that are needed for the plot, because Dave Filoni decides to waste a whole arc on the special needs forces and have 2 filler episodes on the Sisters arc in the last half of the season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
You once liberated me from my imprisonment by Sidious and his apprentice. At the time, I thought Dooku was an old fool, but now I see. He and I are the same.
On the plus side, Maul is funny. Too bad Ahsoka whoops him. Things go from bad to worse. In the prequels, Anakin was forced to consult Palpatine about Padme dying, as he couldn't trust the Council. He didn't think Obi-Wan would understand, and he had no one else to go to. Season 7 has undone all of that. The Bad Batch arc showed Obi-Wan knew about Padme in no uncertain terms, and this arc showed he might understand because of his relationship with Satine, that Anakin now knows about. If he had failed, he still had Ahsoka he could talk to. He could explain the situation to her and have her rejoin so he could become a Jedi Master. If the Jedi couldn't help him, he could ask Maul, who he knew was in Republic custody, about saving others from death. A Sith trademark secret.
Commander, I have the Council waiting.
And Master Skywalker, were you able to contact him?
He was at the meeting when I left to get you.
You can see it right now. Anakin approaches Palpatine, asking, "How can you save people from death?" And Palpatine replies, "About the tale and tragedy of Dark Plagueis the Wise. He could save others from death, but not himself." Anakin would reply, "Is it possible to learn this power?" And then Palpatine cynically would reply, "Not from a Jedi." Then Anakin would remember, "Oh, you mean like a Sith? One who survived being cut in half and is currently in Republic custody? Like Maul? Thanks, Palpatine, you're the best." And Palpatine, knowing his plan was thwarted, would react, "No, wait, that's not what I meant." There is no longer a reason for him to have joined Palpatine. Filoni is no stranger to breaking canon, but to contradict Anakin's entire prequel arc was impressive. I'll never understand the love for this arc. Anakin was not the only character destroyed. So was Filoni's Rex. His entire character throughout the show was a clone completely loyal to his clone brothers. Chip or no chip, he was not shooting his men for anyone. Emphasis was put on the fact that clones were people, not weapons. Too bad emphasis wasn't put on Rex being a character instead of a plot device. Ahsoka, who believes that the indirectly causing crimes make you responsible.
The spice, we finish our job, and we're already gone.
Fact. The Pikes turned spice into something that ruins lives. So those lives would be on you.
Decided to free Maul, who went on to kill hundreds of nameless clones, instead of hustling to an escape pod. Because that's what well-written characters do. Break their moral code for no reason. When this episode came out, it had what was called the Maul hallway scene, except this one was worse than the previous ones. Just like the fight with Ahsoka, it fell in between over-the-top animated violence and grounded real violence. At least it wasn't as bad as the Luke's hallway scene. The series ends with a bunch of nameless clones being killed, except Jesse. Clones who were supposed to be humanized to make Order 66 more tragic were reduced to drones. Not just because of the chips, but because none of the clones we knew were used. Filoni pretty much undid the whole concept of clones in the Clone Wars. He dehumanized them. Off topic, but the chips were stupid. The arc were boring, and the prequels and novels showed a different story, where Palpatine had set the Jedi so they had to commit treason to attempt to beat him. After leading the clones to their deaths, and since peacekeepers make terrible warriors, see the UN, making him seem like he was the right and making Order 66 legitimate and legal, keeping with him being a master manipulator. But Filoni apparently doesn't understand the prequels. We wasted a whole arc getting Echo back, who could have been used here to more naturally bring up Fives and the chips and helping Ahsoka get Rex back. Instead, he was busy not being used in the Bad Batch. Completely meaninglessly. Speaking of meaninglessly, unless you were wise and never watched Disney's Star Wars until this, you knew Rex, Ahsoka, and Maul were going to be fine. Unlike the Season 5 ending, there was no stakes involved. Unlike the Revenge of the Sith, the conflict was between disconnected characters. There could have been ways to salvage this, but literally none were used. Despite the contradicting the prequels, the entire show, and the basic character motivations, the audience loved it. I suppose people get the circus that they deserve. Some would be quick to blame Disney, which is fair. However, I believe Filoni is at greater fault. He doesn't understand or respect Star Wars lore, and he won't kill off his characters. Just consider how many projects he's headed, and how many of them been duds. People who continue to financially support Star Wars and Disney are part of the problem. Disney consistently puts out shitty products, and then uses the proceeds to acquire more properties and make more shitty products. Ask yourself this question: has Star Wars been better since Disney has obtained it? Paying for their garbage worsens the cycle. Even you didn't care how terrible and monolistic arc because you care about Disney, bribing US governments, and funding concentration camps.